The morning sun peeked through the worn blue curtains as 12-year-old Andre opened his eyes. Today wasn't just any Saturday. It was the day he'd been counting down to for weeks. The calendar on his wall had a big red circle around today's date marked with the words, "Game Day," in excited handwriting. Andre jumped out of bed with more energy than usual, nearly tripping over his basketball shoes that sat ready by his bedside. His room was a shrine to his favorite sport. Posters of basketball legends covered almost every inch of wall space. But one stood out from all the rest. LeBron James, mid-dunk, looking like he could fly forever. "Andre, breakfast is ready." His mom called from downstairs. "Coming," he shouted back, quickly pulling on his favorite jersey. Number 23, of course. He'd saved up his allowance for months to buy it, washing neighbors' cars and walking dogs around the block whenever he could. In the kitchen, Andre's mom, Patricia, was flipping pancakes. The smell of maple syrup filled the air. His little sister Zoe sat at the table, already halfway through her breakfast. "Someone's excited," Patricia said with a smile, sliding a stack of pancakes onto Andre's plate. She'd worked double shifts at the hospital for the past 3 months to afford today's surprise. "I still can't believe we're actually going," Andre said between mouthfuls. "Like, we're really going to see LeBron play? For real?" Patricia nodded, her eyes sparkling. "For real, but only if you finish those pancakes and get ready on time." Andre had been a basketball fan since he could walk. His dad had taught him to dribble when he was just 4 years old, before he'd moved out of state for work. They still talked about basketball during their weekend phone calls, and his dad had been almost as excited as Andre when he heard about the tickets. After breakfast, Andre rushed to get ready. He packed and repacked his small backpack 3 times, making sure he had everything. The small basketball he hoped to get signed, a marker for autographs, his phone to take pictures, and a water bottle for the long day ahead. Patricia watched, her son with quiet joy. Money had been tight since the divorce, but moments like these made all the extra hours at work worth it. The tickets weren't for the best seats in the arena. They were up in the nosebleed section, but they were the best she could do, and to Andre they might as well have been courtside. "Do you think he'll see us?" Andre asked, adjusting his jersey in the hallway mirror. "Like, do you think LeBron might look up and wave at our section?" "You never know," Patricia said, not wanting to dampen his spirits with the reality of how far their seats were from the court. Stranger things have happened. The bus ride to the arena was filled with Andre's non-stop chatter about statistics, playoffs chances, and his favorite LeBron James highlights. Patricia nodded along, understanding about half of what he was saying but loving every moment of his excitement. "Did you know LeBron once scored 61 points in a single game? That's like scoring a point every minute he was on the court." Andre's eyes were wide as he shared this fact for probably the 10th time that week. "That's amazing, honey," Patricia replied, genuinely impressed even though she'd heard it before. As they got closer to the arena, the bus filled with more fans wearing team colors. Andre beamed at everyone wearing the same jersey as his, feeling like part of something bigger than himself. An older man with gray hair nodded approvingly at Andre's jersey, giving him a thumbs up that made the boy sit a little taller in his seat. The bus pulled up 2 blocks from the arena, and as they stepped off, Andre gasped. The massive building loomed ahead, with giant banners of the players hanging down the sides. People streamed toward the entrance from all directions, like rivers flowing into an ocean of excitement. "Wow," was all Andre could say, gripping his mom's hand tightly, something he usually claimed he was too old for. They joined the crowd moving toward the entrance, Andre bouncing on his toes to see over the heads of taller people. Street vendors lined the path, selling everything from hot dogs to foam fingers to knockoff jerseys. The smell of popcorn and pretzels filled the air. "Can we get a program, Mom? Please?" Andre pointed to a vendor selling official game programs. Patricia checked her wallet. She'd budgeted carefully for today, including a little extra for food and maybe one souvenir. "Sure, but then we need to be careful with what else we get, okay?" Andre nodded seriously, understanding that this trip was a big deal for their family. Finances. He picked out a program and immediately flipped to the team roster, even though he probably knew it by heart already. As they approached the entrance gates, Patricia pulled out their tickets from her purse, double-checking the section and seat numbers. The tickets had been a surprise for Andre's birthday last month, and she'd kept them hidden in her work locker until this morning. Section 224, seats 15 and 16, she read aloud. That's all the way up, but the lady at the ticket office said we'd have a good view of the whole court. Andre didn't care how high up they were. He was just thrilled to be here, to breathe the same air as his basketball heroes, to see them play in person rather than on their small TV screen at home. The security line moved slowly as bags were checked and tickets were scanned. Andre clutched his backpack to his chest, worried for a moment that they might not let him bring in his basketball, but the security guard just gave it a quick look and waved them through. Inside, the arena was even more impressive. The ceiling soared high above them, and everywhere Andre looked there was something new to see. Merchandise stands, food vendors, interactive games for fans, and walls of photos showing great moments in team history. "Mom, look," Andre pointed to a life-sized cardboard cutout of LeBron James. "Can we take a picture?" They joined the short line of fans waiting for their turn with the cutout. When it was their turn, Andre stood next to the cardboard LeBron with a grin so wide it looked like his face might split in two. Patricia took several photos, wanting to capture every moment of this special day. After exploring the main concourse, they decided to find their seats. The climb to section 224 was a long one. They went up escalator after escalator, watching as the view of the court below got smaller and the air got warmer as they climbed. "We're really high up," Andre said, a touch of worry in his voice as they emerged at their section. Patricia squeezed his shoulder. "Better for seeing all the action, right? We can watch the whole court from up here." That seemed to satisfy him, and his excitement returned as they walked down the steep steps to their row. The seats were filling up around them, fans of all ages settling in for the game. Andre clutched his program and basketball as they counted. "The seat numbers, 15 and 16, that's us." Patricia pointed to their seats, which were thankfully not in the very middle of the row. They wouldn't have to climb past too many people if they needed to leave for food or bathroom breaks. As they sat down, Andre immediately leaned forward, elbows on his knees, taking in the view. The players weren't on the court yet, but staff members were setting things up, and the giant screens overhead showed highlights from previous games. "When do they come out for warm-ups?" Andre asked, unable to sit still. Patricia checked the time on her phone. "Should be in about 20 minutes. Do you want to get some food before it all starts?" Andre shook his head firmly. "No way. I'm not missing a single minute." A couple with a young daughter sat down in the seats next to them, the little girl wearing a team hat that seemed too big for her head. Andre smiled at her and she hid shyly behind her dad's arm. More and more fans filled the arena, the noise level rising steadily. The excitement was contagious, and even Patricia, who usually only watched basketball because of Andre's interest, found herself caught up in the pre-game energy. The arena lights suddenly dimmed, and a roar went up from the crowd. Andre grabbed his mom's arm, squeezing it tight. "It's starting," he whispered, though his whisper was more of a shout to be heard over the crowd. Music blasted through the speakers as the announcer's voice boomed around the arena. Spotlights swirled across the court, and the giant screens showed the team logo, with flames shooting around it. And then the moment Andre had been waiting for, the players jogged out onto the court for warm-ups. Even from their high seats, he could pick out LeBron James immediately. There was something about the way he moved with such confidence and grace that made him stand out from everyone else. "There he is, Mom. There he is." Andre was on his feet now, pointing frantically. Patricia stood up beside him, putting an arm around his shoulders. This was why they were here. Not just to see a basketball game, but to give Andre this moment of pure joy. This connection to his hero. This memory that would last far longer than the game itself. As the players went through their warm-up routines, shooting baskets and stretching, Andre didn't take his eyes off LeBron for a second. He watched how he moved, how he interacted with teammates, how he prepared himself for the game ahead. "I'm going to play just like him someday," Andre said, his voice filled with determination. I practice his moves every day at the park. I know you do, honey, Patricia said, thinking of the countless hours Andre spent at the neighborhood basketball court, coming home sweaty and tired but always with a smile on his face. The warm-ups continued, and Andre soaked in every detail. This wasn't just a game to him. It was a glimpse into his possible future, a chance to see up close what he dreamed of becoming. As the buzzer sounded to end the warm-up period, Andre sat back in his seat, his face flushed with excitement. The game hadn't even started yet, but already this was the best day of his life. Little did he know that this perfect day was about to take an unexpected turn, one that would make this trip to the arena even more memorable than he could have imagined. The arena buzzed with excitement as fans settled into their seats. Andre and his mom, Patricia, had just returned from a quick bathroom break before the game officially started. They'd timed it perfectly, not wanting to miss the player introductions. As they approached their row in section 224, Andre clutched his program tightly, almost skipping with anticipation. Row K, seats 15 and 16, Patricia reminded him as they counted their way down the row. But when they reached their seats, Andre stopped abruptly. A heavy-set man in his 50s sat sprawled across both their seats, his jacket and a large soda, taking up the little space that was left. Patricia checked their tickets again, making sure they had the right section and seats. "Excuse me," she said politely. "I think you might be in our seats." The man barely looked up from his phone. "Nope, these are mine." Andre looked uncertainly at his mom. He'd been taught to respect adults, but he was sure these were their seats. "They'd been sitting here just minutes ago." Patricia kept her voice calm. "We were just sitting here before we went to the restroom. I have our tickets right here." She held them out for the man to see. Finally, the man looked up, his eyes moving from Patricia to Andre, and then back again. His expression changed, hardening, in a way that made Andre step closer to his mom. "Well, I've got tickets too," the man said, though he made no move to show them. "And I'm sitting here now." A couple seated nearby exchanged uncomfortable glances. The woman leaned toward her partner and whispered something. The partner shook his head slightly, clearly not wanting to get involved. Patricia stood her ground. "Sir, these are definitely our seats. Look, my son even left his backpack under the seat." She pointed to Andre's small blue backpack, still tucked under seat 16. The man glanced down, then pushed the backpack away with his foot. "Never saw that before. Must be someone else's." Andre felt his chest tighten. The excitement of the day was quickly turning into something else. He didn't understand why this man was lying. The backpack had his name written on it in black marker. His mom had insisted on that before they left home. "That's my backpack," Andre said quietly. "It has my name on it." The man ignored him completely, turning his attention back to his phone as if the conversation was over. Patricia's patience was wearing thin, but she kept her tone level for Andre's sake. "Sir, I don't want to cause a scene, but those are our seats. We have the tickets to prove it, and my son's backpack is right there. Could you please move to your actual seats?" The man let out an exaggerated sigh and finally looked directly at them. His gaze lingered on Andre's jersey. "Listen, lady, I paid good money to sit here. I'm not moving just because you and your kid want my seats. Why don't you find somewhere else to sit? There are plenty of empty seats around." Patricia felt her face grow hot. There was something in the way he said, "your kid," that made her skin crawl. She glanced around, but the seats were filling up quickly as game time approached. The few empty seats were clearly reserved for other ticket holders who hadn't arrived yet. "We also paid for these specific seats," Patricia insisted, her voice firmer now. "I'd like to see your tickets, please." The man's face reddened. "Are you calling me a liar?" By now, several people in nearby seats were watching the exchange. An older couple directly behind them whispered to each other. A teenage boy across the aisle had stopped scrolling on his phone to watch. Andre tugged at his mom's sleeve. "Mom, maybe we should just find other seats," he whispered, not wanting to cause trouble. The joy of the day was rapidly fading, replaced by a knot in his stomach. Patricia looked down at her son, seeing the discomfort on his face. For a moment she considered giving in, just to spare him from this unpleasant situation. But then she thought about how hard they'd both worked for these tickets, how long Andre had been looking forward to this day. "No, honey," she said gently, but firmly. "These are our seats. We're not going to let someone take what's rightfully ours." She turned back to the man. "Sir, I'm going to have to insist. Those are our seats." The man sat up straighter, his bulk seeming to expand as he puffed, up with indignation. "You people always think you're entitled to whatever you want, don't you?" The words hung in the air like a slap. Patricia stiffened, immediately understanding the implication behind "you people." Andre might be too young to fully grasp the man's meaning, but he could feel the sudden shift in the atmosphere. A woman 2 rows ahead turned around, her expression concerned. Several other nearby fans exchanged uneasy glances. The tension was palpable now. "This has nothing to do with entitlement," Patricia said, keeping her voice steady despite the anger building inside her. "It's about having tickets for these specific seats that you're currently occupying without the right to do so." The man sneered. "Maybe you should save up for better seats next time. These aren't really meant for—" He stopped himself, but his meaning was clear enough. Andre's eyes widened as he began to understand. This wasn't just about seats anymore. He'd experienced similar situations before, at school, at the store, at the park, but his mom had always tried to shield him from the worst of it. Now, here in this crowded arena, on what was supposed to be one of the best days of his life, there was nowhere to hide from the ugly truth. Patricia placed a protective hand on Andre's shoulder. "I'd like to speak to an usher, please," she said, looking around for arena staff. "Go ahead," the man said with a dismissive wave. "See if I care." A young man in the row behind them stood up. "I'll go get someone," he offered, clearly uncomfortable with what was unfolding. "Thank you." Patricia nodded gratefully. While they waited, the arena continued to fill. The excitement of the upcoming game buzzed around them, a stark contrast to the tense standoff in their row. The pre-game music pounded through the speakers, and the big screens showed fans dancing in their seats. Andre stood close to his mom, his earlier excitement now completely overshadowed. He watched as players on the court finished their warm-ups, including LeBron James, who was now just a distant figure instead of the focal point of his attention. After what felt like an eternity, the young man returned with an usher, a middle-aged woman in a bright yellow vest. "What seems to be the problem here?" the usher asked, looking between Patricia and the man. Patricia explained the situation calmly, showing their tickets. The man interrupted several times, his voice growing louder with each interjection. "Ma'am, could I see your tickets as well?" the usher asked the man. "I left them at home," he claimed, "but I know these are my seats. I sit here every game." The usher looked skeptical. "Sir, without tickets, I can't verify that. These folks have tickets for these exact seats." "Check your system then," the man demanded. "Look up my name. I'm a season ticket holder." The usher pulled out a small tablet. "What's your name, sir?" As the man gave his information, Patricia noticed a slight hesitation in his voice. The usher tapped on her tablet, frowning slightly. "Sir, according to our records, your season tickets are in section 118, not 224, the usher said after a moment. The man's face flushed deeper. "That's wrong. Your system is wrong." Andre watched the exchange, a mixture of relief and anxiety washing over him. He just wanted to sit down and watch the game with his mom. The player introductions would be starting soon. The usher remained professional but firm. "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to move to your assigned seats in section 118. She looked at the ticket Andre's mom was still holding. "And allow these patrons to take their rightful seats." Instead of complying, the man crossed his arms. "I'm not moving. These people are harassing me." Several nearby fans made sounds of disbelief. The tension in the air was thick enough to cut with a knife. The usher's expression hardened slightly. "Sir, if you refuse to move to your correct seats, I'll need to call security." "Go ahead," the man challenged. "I've been coming to games here for 20 years. Let's see who they believe." The usher spoke quietly into her radio, requesting backup. Andre shifted uncomfortably from one foot to the other. This was not how he had imagined this day going. Instead of enjoying the pre-game excitement, he was standing awkwardly in the aisle, the center of unwanted attention. Patricia squeezed his shoulder reassuringly. "It's going to be okay," she whispered. "We're not doing anything wrong." More people were watching now. A few had their phones out, either recording or texting about the situation. Andre wished he could disappear. He'd always hated being the center of attention, especially negative attention. The man continued to argue with the usher, his voice growing louder, occasionally throwing glances at Patricia and Andre that made it clear this wasn't just about the seats. "Those tickets are probably fake anyway," he muttered just loud enough for them to hear. Patricia had had enough. "My son has been looking forward to this game for months. We saved up for these tickets. All we want is to sit in the seats we paid for and enjoy the game." "Why is that so difficult for you to understand?" the man sneered. "Maybe you should teach your son that he can't always get what he wants in life." He felt tears pricking at the corners of his eyes. He blinked rapidly, determined not to cry. Not here. Not now. But the man's words stung, piercing through his usual defenses. 2 security guards arrived, joining the usher. One was a tall woman, with short hair, the other a broad-shouldered man with a kind face. They listened as the usher explained the situation. "Sir, we need you to move to your assigned seats," the female security guard said firmly. "This is ridiculous," the man complained. "I'm being singled out here." "No, sir. You're being asked to sit in the seats you actually paid for," the male guard corrected him. That's all. A small crowd had gathered at the end of the row, curious about the commotion. Andre noticed a few people pointing in their direction, whispering to each other. His face burned with embarrassment. The man still refused to move, now, claiming that he had bad knees and couldn't manage the stairs down to section 118. The security guards exchanged glances, clearly running out of patience. "Sir, we can provide assistance if needed, but you will need to move to your assigned seats," the female guard stated. "If you continue to refuse, we'll have to escort you out of the arena." This finally seemed to get through to the man. The thought of being removed entirely was apparently worse than moving to his actual seats. He gathered his jacket and soda, muttering under his breath. As he stood up, he accidentally knocked Andre's program to the ground. "Oops," he said with fake concern. "Butterfingers." Andre bent to pick it up, but Patricia stopped him. "Leave it," she said quietly. "I'll get it." She didn't want the man anywhere near her son. The man shuffled past them, deliberately bumping Patricia's shoulder as he went. "Enjoy the game," he said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "Don't get too comfortable." The security guards escorted him away, one in front and one behind, as if they didn't trust him not to return. The usher stayed behind, genuinely apologetic. "Am I so sorry about that," she said to Patricia and Andre. "This should never have happened." Patricia nodded, too drained to say much. "Thank you for your help. Please let any of our staff know if you need anything else," the usher added before leaving to attend to other duties. Finally, Patricia and Andre took their seats, the seats that were rightfully theirs, but the joy of the moment had been tarnished. Andre sat down quietly, his earlier enthusiasm dimmed. "Are you okay?" Patricia asked softly. Andre nodded, not trusting himself to speak. He wasn't okay, not really, but he didn't want to worry his mom. She'd worked so hard to make this day special for him. Around them, a few kind-hearted fans offered sympathetic smiles. The older couple behind them leaned forward. "That man was completely out of line," the woman said gently. "Don't let him ruin your day." Andre attempted a smile, appreciating the kindness but still feeling the sting of what had happened. Arena lights dimmed, signaling the start of player introductions. The crowd roared as spotlights swirled around the court. Under normal circumstances, Andre would have been on his feet, cheering at the top of his lungs. Instead, he sat subdued, watching as the players were announced one by one. Patricia noticed. his dampened spirits, and put an arm around his shoulders. "Hey," she said close to his ear so he could hear her over the noise of the crowd. "We're here. We made it. Don't let that man take this moment from you." Andre looked at his mom, seeing the concern in her eyes. She was right. They had worked too hard, waited too long for this day. He wasn't going to let one hateful person ruin it. As the announcer's voice boomed, "And now, from Akron, Ohio, number 23, the crowd noise swelled to a deafening level. Andre stood up, his earlier excitement slowly returning as LeBron James was introduced, running onto the court with his arms raised to the fans. "That's him, Mom," Andre shouted, momentarily forgetting the unpleasant encounter. "That's really him," Patricia smiled, relieved to see a glimpse of her son's joy returning. But she couldn't shake the unsettling feeling left by the confrontation. No child should have to experience what Andre had just gone through, especially not on what was supposed to be such a special day. As the national anthem played, Andre stood with his hand over his heart, his eyes fixed on the court below. Patricia watched him, her own heart heavy with a mixture of love for her son and anger at a world that could be so cruel to someone so young. The game was about to begin, but neither of them could have predicted how the events of this day were about to take an even more unexpected turn, one that would forever change how Andre remembered his first professional basketball game. As the first quarter of the game got underway, the energy in the arena was electric. Fans cheered with each basket, groaned with each missed shot, and booed questionable calls by the referees. Under normal circumstances, Andre would have been completely absorbed in the action on the court, especially watching his hero LeBron James. But the confrontation with the man who had taken their seats had cast a shadow over what should have been a perfect day. Andre tried his best to focus on the game, leaning forward in his seat whenever LeBron had the ball. His mom, Patricia, kept glancing at him, worried about how the incident had affected him. She'd seen this look on his face before, quiet, withdrawn, trying to process things no child should have to deal with. "You want some popcorn?" she asked during a timeout, hoping to lift his spirits. Andre nodded half-heartedly. "Sure." "I'll be right back," Patricia said, giving his shoulder a gentle squeeze before heading to the concession stand. Left alone, Andre watched the timeout entertainment, a mascot shooting t-shirts into the crowd with a cannon. He wished one would come his way. Maybe that would make this day better somehow. Meanwhile, unknown to Andre and the thousands of fans enjoying the game, LeBron James was more aware of what was happening in the stands than anyone realized. During the pre-game warm-ups while jogging around the perimeter of the court, he had noticed the commotion in Section 224. It wasn't unusual to see disagreements over seats, but something about this one had caught his attention. From his vantage point on the court, LeBron couldn't hear what was being said, but body language told him plenty. He'd seen the way the heavy-set man had looked at the woman and her son, seen the security guards called over, seen the reluctant way the man had finally left. And he'd definitely noticed the young boy in his jersey, number 23, looking devastated by the whole ordeal. LeBron had been in the league long enough to recognize what was probably happening. It wasn't the first time he'd witnessed such things, both as a player and in his own life. There was a particular kind of tension, a specific type of body language that was all too familiar to him. As he played through the first quarter, executing plays and calling out defensive assignments to his teammates, part of his mind remained on that young fan. LeBron had always believed that his responsibility extended beyond the basketball court. His platform came with power, and power came with responsibility. It was something he took seriously. During a timeout, while his teammates huddled around, the coach discussing strategy, LeBron pulled aside one of the team's assistant coaches. "Hey, you see that kid up in Section 224? The one in my jersey?" LeBron asked, nodding toward the stands. The assistant coach scanned the section. "The one sitting next to the empty seat? Mom just left?" "Yeah, that's him. Something happened before the game. Some guy was in their seat, security had to come. Kid looks pretty upset about it." The assistant coach raised his eyebrows. "You want me to send someone to check on him?" LeBron shook his head. "Not yet. Let me think about it." As the timeout ended and play resumed, LeBron kept glancing up at section 224 between plays. He saw Patricia return with popcorn and drinks, saw her trying to engage Andre in conversation, saw the boys' subdued responses. Back in their seats, Patricia was doing her best to salvage the day. Look, LeBron just made another basket. That's 12 points already, and it's only the first quarter. Andre nodded, trying to match her enthusiasm. Yeah, he's playing really good. Patricia handed him the popcorn. You know, no matter what happened earlier, we're still here. We still get to see the whole game. That's something, right? I guess, Andre said, taking a handful of popcorn. I just don't understand why that man was so mean. We didn't do anything to him. Patricia sighed, unsure how to explain the ugliness of prejudice to her 12-year-old son. It wasn't the first time they'd encountered it, but each instance felt like a fresh wound. Some people are just angry at the world, honey, she said finally. It has nothing to do with you. Nothing to do with anything we did or didn't do. Andre considered this. But it does have to do with us, doesn't it? Because of how we look? The directness of his question broke Patricia's heart. Children shouldn't have to be this aware, this perceptive about the world's injustices. But Andre had always been observant, picking up on things many adults thought went over his head. Yes, she admitted after a moment. Sometimes people judge others based on how they look, but that says everything about them and nothing about us. Andre nodded, seeming older than his 12 years. I know. You've told me that before. And I'll keep telling you because it's true, Patricia said firmly. Never let anyone make you feel less than who you are. Their conversation was interrupted by a roar from the crowd as LeBron stole the ball and raced down the court for a powerful dunk. Despite himself, Andre jumped to his feet, cheering along with everyone else. For a moment, the joy of the game broke through the cloud that had settled over him. As the first quarter ended, a woman in the row behind them tapped Patricia on the shoulder. Excuse me, she said, but I wanted to say, I think you handled, that situation earlier really well. That guy was completely out of line. Patricia smiled gratefully. Thank you, I appreciate that. Is this your first game? The woman asked. Andre turned around nodding. Yeah, I've been saving up for months to come see LeBron play. The woman's husband leaned forward. Well, you picked a good one. He's on fire tonight. This small interaction, the simple kindness of strangers, seemed to help Andre relax a bit. As the second quarter began, he became more engaged with the game, pointing out good plays to his mom and explaining strategy that she didn't fully understand. Meanwhile, on the sidelines during a break-in play, LeBron approached the team's community relations director who was standing near the bench. Lisa, you see that kid up in 224? The one in my jersey? LeBron asked. Lisa looked up, squinting slightly. The one with his mom? Yeah, I see him. Something went down before the game. Some guy took their seats. Security had to get involved. Kid seems pretty shaken up about it. Lisa nodded, immediately understanding. You want us to do something for him? Maybe. Let me see how the game goes. Might have an idea. Lisa had worked with LeBron long enough to know when he was planning something. Just let me know what you need. As the second quarter progressed, word of what had happened in Section 224 began to spread through the staff working the game. One of the security guards who had handled the situation mentioned it to a cameraman, who told one of the production assistants responsible for crowd shots during timeouts. There was this whole thing in 224, the cameraman explained. Some guy refusing to move from seats that weren't his. Pretty ugly situation. The kid whose seat it was looked crushed. The production assistant made a note. Where exactly? Maybe we can get them on the big screen during the next timeout. Give the kid a moment, you know? Row K, seats 15 and 16, mom and son. Kids wearing a LeBron jersey. During the next timeout, as the dance team performed on the court, the camera panned through the crowd, eventually finding Andre and Patricia. When Andre saw himself on the massive screens hanging above the court, his eyes widened in surprise. Patricia laughed and gave him a quick side hug as fans around them cheered and pointed. For the first time since the confrontation, Andre broke into a genuine smile. Being on the big screen, even for just a few seconds, made him feel special instead of singled out in a negative way. What Andre didn't know was that LeBron had noticed this moment too. Sitting on the bench during the timeout, drinking water and listening to the coach's instructions, he'd glanced up at the screen just in time to see Andre's surprised face and subsequent smile. On the other side of the arena, in a private suite, the man who had taken Andre and Patricia's seats was watching the game with a group of business associates. He'd been complaining about the entitled people who had made a scene over the seats, conveniently leaving out the fact that they weren't actually his seats to begin with. And then security treated me like I was some kind of criminal, he grumbled, taking a large gulp of beer. Unbelievable. One of his associates shifted uncomfortably. But were they actually your seats, Greg? That's not the point. Greg dismissed with a wave of his hand. The point is how they handled it. No respect. Another associate, who had been quietly listening, spoke up. Sounds to me like you were in the wrong seats and got called out for it. Greg's face reddened. Whose side are you on? I'm not on anyone's side. I'm just saying, if they had tickets for those seats and you didn't, then they were right to ask you to move. The conversation was interrupted by a waiter bringing another round of drinks. Greg changed the subject, but the uncomfortable atmosphere in the suite lingered. Back in section 224, the game continued into the second quarter. Andre was finally beginning to enjoy himself, the incident with Greg fading somewhat as he immersed himself in the excitement of the game. LeBron was playing exceptionally well, and every time he scored, Andre jumped to his feet, cheering loudly. During a particularly spectacular play, LeBron blocking a shot at one end and then sprinting down the court to finish with a reverse layup, Andre turned to his mom with shining eyes. Did you see that, Mom? Did you see what he did? Patricia nodded, happy to see her son's enthusiasm returning. That was amazing. A few rows ahead, a man in a press lanyard was taking notes on a small pad. During a break in play, he turned and scanned the crowd, his eyes eventually landing on Andre and Patricia. He watched them for a moment, then made a note before turning his attention back to the court. This man was Keith Johnson, a sports reporter for a major online publication. He'd heard whispers among the press corps about an incident in the stands. Before the game, something involving a seat dispute with racial undertones. Always on the lookout for stories that went beyond the game itself, Keith was intrigued. As halftime approached, Keith made his way through the stands toward section 224. Finding an empty seat a few rows behind Andre and Patricia, he sat down and casually struck up a conversation with the couple sitting next to him. Great game so far, huh? Keith said. The man nodded. LeBron's on fire tonight. I heard there was some kind of incident up here before the game, Keith mentioned casually. Something about seats? The woman leaned in. Oh, it was awful. This big guy was sitting in that woman and her son's seats. She nodded toward Patricia and Andre. Refused to move even when they showed him their tickets. Security had to come and everything. Really? Keith said, pulling out his notepad. Do you mind telling me what happened? As the couple recounted what they'd witnessed, Keith took notes. When they mentioned the racial undertones of the man's comments, Keith's expression grew serious. This was more than just a simple seat dispute. On the court, the halftime buzzer sounded. Players from both teams headed to their respective locker rooms. LeBron, instead of following his teammates immediately, approached Lisa, the community relations director, who was standing near the tunnel. I want to meet that kid after the game, LeBron said, the one from section 224. Lisa nodded. I'll make it happen. Want me to bring them down to the tunnel? LeBron thought for a moment. No, I think I want to go up there. Make it more of a surprise. Lisa raised her eyebrows. You want to go up to the stands? That's going to cause quite a commotion. I know, but I think it's important. As they talked, several people nearby overheard the conversation. Other staff members, a few, privileged fans with courtside access, and at least one member of the media who happened to be walking past. In the age of social media, it didn't take long for whispers to spread. In the press section, phones began buzzing with texts and notifications. Word was spreading that LeBron had taken notice of some kind of incident in the stands and was planning something after the game. Keith Johnson, still sitting near Section 224, received a text from a colleague down in the press area. Hearing LeBron might be planning something with a kid from 224. What's going on up there? Keith looked down at Andre, who was excitedly discussing the first half with his mom, completely unaware of the wheels that were in motion. Keith texted back, "On it. We'll explain later." As fans headed for concessions and restrooms during halftime, Patricia turned to Andre. "Are you having a good time now, despite what happened?" Andre nodded, his earlier excitement fully restored. "This is the best day ever, Mom. LeBron is even better in person than on TV." Patricia smiled, relieved. "I'm glad, honey. You deserve this day." "Thank you for bringing me," Andre said, suddenly hugging his mom. "Even with that mean man, this is still the best day." Patricia hugged him back tightly, her eyes misting slightly. "You're welcome, baby. Nothing makes me happier than seeing you happy." Meanwhile, in the team locker room, LeBron was discussing his plan with a few teammates while trainers worked on their muscles. "So this kid and his mom had their seat stolen by some racist guy?" one teammate asked, shaking his head. "That's messed up." "Yeah," LeBron confirmed. "Security eventually got the guy to move, but you could tell the kid was crushed. First game too, from what I could overhear." "So what are you thinking?" another teammate asked. "I'm going to go up there after the game. Just show this kid that he matters, that we see him." His teammates nodded in understanding. They'd all witnessed LeBron's commitment to social justice and his special connection with young fans over the years. "Want us to come with you?" one offered. LeBron considered this. "Nah, I think it might mean more one-on-one, but thanks, man." The head coach walked by, catching the end of the conversation. "Everything okay, LeBron?" "Yeah, coach, just handling something after the game." The coach nodded, trusting his star player. "Just make sure you're focused for the second half. We need this win." "Always, coach," LeBron assured him. As halftime wound down, fans began returning to their seats. Andre and Patricia had gotten refills on their drinks and bought a foam finger that Andre now wore proudly on his right hand. Patricia said as they settled back into their seats, "I think that man did us a favor in the end." Andre looked confused. "What do you mean?" "Well, we got on the big screen, didn't we? And all these nice people around us have been so kind. Sometimes good thing has come from bad situations." Andre considered this. "I guess you're right, but I still wish it hadn't happened." "Me too, honey. Me too." As the teams returned to the court for the second half, the atmosphere in the arena was charged with anticipation, just for the game itself, but for what might happen afterward. Among the staff and media, whispers continued to circulate. Something special was brewing, and Section 224 was at the center of it. What Andre didn't know as he settled in to watch the second half of the game was that his hero had not only noticed what had happened but was planning to do something about it. The confrontation that had threatened to ruin his special day was about to lead to an encounter beyond anything he could have imagined. The third quarter of the game was underway, and the excitement in the arena had reached fever pitch. The home team was up by 8 points, with LeBron James leading the charge. He'd already scored 24 points and showed no signs of slowing down. For Andre, the ugly incident before the game was gradually fading as he lost himself in the thrill of watching his hero play. "Mom, did you see that pass?" Andre exclaimed as LeBron threaded the ball between two defenders to find his teammate for an easy dunk. Patricia nodded, smiling at her son's renewed enthusiasm. The spark was back in his eyes, the earlier hurt temporarily forgotten. What neither of them knew was that word of the pre-game confrontation had spread throughout the arena staff. The security guards who had escorted the man from their seats had shared the story with their colleagues. The usher who had helped resolve the situation had mentioned it to her supervisor. Even some of the concession workers had heard about that poor kid in Section 224. Down on the court, LeBron was fully focused on the game, calling out defensive assignments and directing traffic on offense. But during a timeout midway through the third quarter, as he sat on the bench sipping water, he glanced up toward Section 224. He could just make out Andre, still wearing his number 23 jersey, watching the timeout entertainment with rapt attention. Lisa, the community relations director, approached the bench and leaned down to speak quietly to LeBron. "Everything's set for after the game," she informed him. "Security knows the plan. I've also spoken with the camera crew to make sure they capture it." LeBron nodded. "Thanks. The kid's still up there?" "Yep. Same seat. Seems to be enjoying the game now." "Good." LeBron stood as the timeout ended, ready to return to action. In the press section, reporter Keith Johnson was putting together notes for a potential story. He'd gathered accounts from several witnesses to the pregame incident and had confirmed through sources that LeBron was planning some kind of gesture after the game. Keith had been covering basketball for 15 years, but he knew that sometimes the most powerful stories happened off the court. As the game continued, a buzz began to spread through certain sections of the arena. Those in the know, arena staff, some media members, a few well-connected fans, were sharing whispers about what might happen after the final buzzer. The rumor mill was in full swing. "I heard LeBron's going to bring the kid down to the locker room," one fan said to another, a few rows behind Andre and Patricia. "No, I heard he's going to give him his game-worn jersey right on the court," another countered. Patricia caught bits and pieces of these conversations but didn't think much of them. Fans were always speculating about what players might do. Andre remained blissfully unaware, his attention fixed firmly on the court. As the third quarter ended, the home team had extended their lead to 12 points. LeBron had added another 8 points to his total and was now just 2 assists shy of a triple-double. Andre was beside himself with excitement. "He might get a triple-double, Mom," he exclaimed. "That's when a player gets double digits in 3. Different stats," he added, always eager to share his basketball knowledge with his mother. "That's amazing," Patricia replied, genuinely impressed both by LeBron's performance and her son's expertise. "Is that hard to do?" "Super hard," Andre confirmed. "Only the best players can do it consistently. LeBron's one of the best ever at it." During the break between quarters, the arena's entertainment team launched T-shirts into the crowd using air cannons. Fans jumped and waved, desperate to catch the flying shirts. One sailed toward section 224, and Andre leaped up, arms outstretched. For a moment it looked like it might reach him, but it fell just short, landing in the hands of a man 2 rows ahead. The man turned around, saw Andre's disappointed face, and without hesitation, tossed the shirt up to him. "Here you go, buddy. Nice jersey." Andre caught the shirt, surprised and delighted. "Thank you," he called down to the man, who gave him a thumbs up before turning back to the game. Patricia squeezed Andre's shoulder. "See? Lots of good people in the world." Andre nodded, clutching his unexpected gift. It was a small moment of kindness, but it helped further wash away the sour taste of the earlier confrontation. As the fourth quarter began, the atmosphere in the arena grew even more electric. The home team was closing in on an important victory, and LeBron was putting on a show. With each basket he scored, each assist he delivered, each rebound he grabbed, Andre cheered louder than anyone in their section. Meanwhile, security personnel were quietly coordinating. Through their earpieces, they received instructions about the plan for after the game. Extra staff were positioned in the vicinity of section 224, ready to manage the inevitable crowd reaction when LeBron made his move. With 3 minutes left in the game and the outcome virtually decided, the home team up by 15 points, Lisa approached the tunnel that led from the court to the locker rooms. She had a brief conversation with the security team leader, confirming the final details. "He still wants to go up to the stands?" the security leader asked, looking concerned. "Yes," Lisa confirmed. "He feels strongly about it." "It's going to be chaos," the security leader warned. "We haven't had a player go into the stands like this in years." "I know, but when LeBron sets his mind on something, especially something like this..." Lisa shrugged. "We just need to make it work." The security leader nodded. "We'll have our people in position, just make sure he follows our lead." As the final minutes of the game ticked away, Andre was in basketball heaven. His hero had secured his triple-double with a beautiful assist on a three-pointer, and the home team was cruising to victory. Despite the rough start, This had turned into everything Andre had hoped for when dreaming about this day. The final buzzer sounded, and fans erupted in cheers. Players from both teams exchanged handshakes and hugs at center court. Andre stood applauding enthusiastically. "That was awesome," he exclaimed to his mom. "Did you see that last shot LeBron made?" Patricia nodded, beginning to gather their things. "It was amazing. Ready to head out? Traffic's going to be crazy." Before Andre could answer, he noticed something unusual. The crowd around them wasn't dispersing as quickly as might be expected after the game. In fact, several people seemed to be watching their section with interest. Andre noticed a security guard speaking into his radio while looking in their direction. "Mom, why is everyone looking over here?" Andre asked, suddenly self-conscious. Patricia glanced around, also noticing the strange attention. "I'm not sure, honey." Down on the court, most players had headed toward the locker room. But LeBron James remained. He was speaking with a referee, then with Lisa from Community Relations. Then, to the surprise of many fans still in the arena, he turned and began walking not toward the tunnel, but toward the stands. A murmur swept through the crowd. This was unusual. Players typically exited directly to the locker room after games. Those fans who had been heading for the exits paused, turning back to see what was happening. LeBron approached the first row of seats, speaking briefly with a security guard. Then, to the astonishment of everyone watching, he began climbing the steps into the stands. The murmur turned into an excited buzz. Fans in the lower sections reached out as LeBron passed, hoping for a high five or fist bump. Security personnel formed a loose barrier around him, keeping the crowd from pressing in too closely. Andre, still standing in section 224, hadn't noticed what was happening yet. He was busy putting on his jacket, still chatting excitedly about the game. And when he dunked over that tall guy in the third quarter? That was incredible. I wish Dad could have seen it. I'm going to call him as soon as we get home and tell him everything. Patricia's attention, however, had been drawn to the growing commotion in the lower sections. She could see a group of people moving up the stairs, surrounded by security. At the center of the group was a tall figure in a home team uniform. "Andre?" she said quietly, tapping her son's shoulder. "Look." Andre turned, following his mother's gaze. His eyes widened as he realized what he was seeing. Is that LeBron?" It was indeed LeBron James, making his way through the stands, moving deliberately toward the upper sections. Fans were going wild, phones out, recording the unexpected moment. The few remaining media members on the sidelines had sprung into action, cameras following LeBron's progress. "Where's he going?" Andre wondered aloud, standing on his tiptoes to get a better view. As LeBron continued his climb, it became increasingly clear that he was headed directly for section 224. Fans in the nearby sections began pointing toward Andre and Patricia, having put together the rumors they'd heard with LeBron's current trajectory. "Mom," Andre said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I think he's coming here." Patricia put a protective arm around her son's shoulders, unsure what was happening but sensing it had something to do with them. The security team reached their section first, forming a perimeter around their row. One of the guards approached them directly. "Excuse me," he said politely. "Are you the folks who had the seat issue before the game?" Patricia nodded, stunned. "Yes, but how?" "LeBron would like to speak with you," the guard explained. "If that's okay." Andre's jaw dropped. He looked at his mom, then back at the guard, then down toward where LeBron was still making his way up the steps. With us?" Andre stammered. The guard smiled. "Yes, with you." By now, nearly everyone still in the arena was watching the scene unfold. Camera phones were pointed in their direction from all angles. Even the arena's main cameras had swiveled to capture the moment, projecting it onto the giant screens above the court. And then, suddenly, there he was, LeBron James, 6'9" and larger than life, standing at the end of their row. Despite having just played an intense 40 minutes of professional basketball, he didn't appear particularly winded. He smiled warmly as he approached Andre and Patricia. "Hey, there," LeBron said, his deep voice somehow carrying over the excited murmurs of the crowd. "I'm LeBron. Mind if I join you for a minute?" Andre could only nod, completely speechless. Patricia found her voice first. Of course, she managed, still confused but beginning to understand that something extraordinary was happening. LeBron made his way down the row, stopping directly in front of Andre. He extended his hand. "I like your jersey," he said with a grin. Andre looked down at his number 23 jersey, then back up at the actual number 23 standing before him. He took LeBron's hand, which engulfed his own completely. Thank you," Andre said, his voice barely audible. LeBron knelt down slightly, bringing himself closer to Andre's eye level. "I saw what happened before the game," he said, his voice softer now, meant just for Andre and Patricia. "With your seats." Andre's eyes widened. Patricia put a protective hand on her son's back. You saw that?" Andre asked. LeBron nodded. "I did. And I wanted to come up here and tell you personally that what that man did wasn't right. This game, this arena, this sport, it's for everybody. Nobody should ever make you feel like you don't belong here." Andre swallowed hard, tears welling in his eyes. Patricia wasn't faring much better, her own eyes glistening. "Those were our seats," Andre said quietly. "We saved up for them." "I know," LeBron said, his expression serious. "And you deserve to enjoy the game without that kind of treatment. I wanted to make sure you know that most people aren't like that guy. Most people are glad you're here." As if on cue, fans in the surrounding sections began to applaud. The applause spread quickly throughout the arena as more people realized what was happening. Soon, the entire place was cheering, not for a basketball play, but for this moment of human connection. LeBron glanced around, acknowledging the crowd with a nod before turning his attention back to Andre. "I heard this was your first game," he said. Andre nodded. "Yes, sir. My mom got the tickets for my birthday." "Well, we can't have your first game memory be about some guy being disrespectful," LeBron said. "So I was thinking maybe we could replace it with a better memory." He reached into a small bag that one of the team staff had brought up with him and pulled out a pair of basketball shoes. His game-worn shoes from that very night, still warm from the heat of competition. "These are for you," LeBron said, handing them to Andre. "I wore them tonight, triple-double shoes," he added with a wink. Andre accepted the shoes with trembling hands, looking at them in disbelief. They were enormous compared to his own feet, the superstar's signature model with custom colors and the number 23 stitched on the heel. "Thank you," Andre whispered, clutching the shoes to his chest like a treasure. "That's not all," LeBron continued. He pulled out a jersey, a fresh official one, not game-worn but brand new. "This one's for you too, I signed it on the back." Andre turned the jersey over to find LeBron's signature scrawled across the number, along with a short message. "Stay strong. You belong anywhere you want to be. LJ." By now, Patricia was openly crying, overwhelmed by the superstar's kindness. "Thank you," she said, her voice breaking slightly. "You have no idea what this means to him, to us." LeBron turned to her, his expression serious again. "I think I do know. I've been where he is. I've felt what he felt today. That's why I had to come up here." He turned back to Andre. "Can I give you some advice?" Andre nodded eagerly, still clutching his new treasures. "Don't let anyone tell you where you belong or don't belong. Don't let anyone make you feel small. You have every right to be wherever you want to be, doing whatever you love to do. Remember that, okay?" "I will," Andre promised, his voice stronger now. LeBron smiled, then surprised both Andre and Patricia by pulling them into a quick hug. The crowd erupted in cheers again, many fans wiping away tears of their own. As LeBron prepared to leave, Andre found the courage to ask one more thing. Can I take a picture with you?" "Of course," LeBron laughed. "Let's do it." Patricia fumbled for her phone, hands still shaking with emotion. A nearby fan offered to take the photo for them, allowing Patricia to join the picture. LeBron knelt between them, one arm around Andre, the other around Patricia, all three smiling widely. After the photo was taken, LeBron stood and addressed the crowd, his voice carrying throughout the arena. "This is what basketball is about," he called out. "This is what community is about. We look out for each other. We stand up for each other. We make sure everyone feels welcome, no matter what they look like or where they come from." The crowd roared its approval, a standing ovation not just for the basketball star but for the sentiment he expressed. With a final wave to Andre and Patricia, LeBron began making his way back down toward the court, surrounded once again by his security detail. Fans reached out for high fives as he passed, and he obliged as many as he could. Andre and Patricia remained in their seats, too overwhelmed to move just yet. Nearby fans approached them, offering congratulations and support. Some shared their own stories of being made to feel unwelcome in various situations, while others simply wanted to express their happiness for Andre's special moment. "That really just happened, right?" Andre asked his mom, still clutching the shoes and jersey. "I'm not dreaming?" Patricia laughed, wiping away tears. "It really happened, honey. LeBron James really just came up here to see you." "Because of what that man did?" "Yes, but more importantly, because LeBron wanted to make sure you knew that what that man did was wrong, that you belong here just as much as anyone else." Andre nodded, looking down at his new treasures, then back at his mom. "This is the best day of my life." Patricia hugged her son close, her heart full. What had started as an ugly incident had transformed into something beautiful, something Andre would remember for the rest of his life. As they finally prepared to leave, making their way slowly toward the exit, Andre looked back at the now empty court one last time. "Mom," he said thoughtfully, "I think I know what I want to do when I grow up. Be a basketball player?" Patricia guessed with a smile. Andre shook his head. "Well, yeah, that too. But more importantly, I want to be like LeBron, not just how he plays but how he stands up for people, how he makes them feel like they matter." Patricia felt fresh tears spring to her eyes. "That's a wonderful goal, Andre. And you know what? I think you're already well on your way." As they left the arena and stepped into the cool evening air, they were approached by a man with a press badge. "Excuse me," he said politely. "I'm Keith Johnson from Sports Daily. Would you mind if I asked you a few questions about what just happened with LeBron?" Patricia looked at Andre, letting him decide. After a moment's consideration, Andre nodded. "Sure," he said. "I'd like people to know what LeBron did, how he turned something bad into something good." As Andre began recounting the day's events, to the reporter, Patricia watched her son with pride. The confidence in his voice, the straightness of his posture, these were new. In standing up for Andre, LeBron had helped her son stand a little taller on his own. Sometimes, Patricia reflected, the most powerful lessons come from the most unexpected moments. Today, her son had learned not just about prejudice and injustice, but about courage, kindness, and the impact one person can have when they choose to stand up for what's right. And that, she thought, was a lesson worth every penny they'd saved. For those tickets, and then some. The ride home from the arena was nothing like Patricia had imagined it would be. Instead of a tired, sleepy Andre dozing off against the bus window, her son was wide awake, buzzing with energy as if the game had just started rather than ended hours ago. He hadn't let go of LeBron's shoes since they'd been placed in his hands. "Do you think the shoes will fit in my bedroom trophy case?" Andre asked, turning the massive sneakers over in his hands for the 100th time. "They're so big," Patricia laughed, still feeling the emotional afterglow of what had happened. "We might need to buy you a bigger case, or maybe we can put them on top of your bookshelf." Andre nodded seriously as if this was the most important decision he'd ever have to make. "Maybe on my desk, so I can see them while I'm doing homework. Like, for inspiration." "That's a good idea," Patricia agreed, watching her son's face glow with happiness. The contrast between his expression now and the hurt, confused look he'd worn during the confrontation with that man was striking. The bus was relatively empty at this late hour. Just a few other fans from the game making their way home. An older man across the aisle leaned toward them. "Excuse me," he said politely. "Weren't you the folks LeBron went to see in the stands tonight?" I was sitting a few sections over and saw the whole thing. Andre nodded excitedly. Yes, sir. He gave me his game shoes and a signed jersey. The man smiled warmly. That was something special. Been going to games for 30 years and never seen anything like it. You know, you're going to be on the news tomorrow. Patricia hadn't fully considered the media aspect of what had happened. She'd been so overwhelmed by the moment itself that she hadn't thought about how widely it might spread. The reporter, Keith Johnson, had seemed genuine in his interest, but she wondered how the story would be framed. Do you really think so? She asked the man. Oh, definitely, the man replied. Social media's already blowing up with videos. My daughter texted me about it and she wasn't even at the game. Said it's trending online. Andre's eyes widened. We're trending? Well, LeBron is, the man clarified with a chuckle. But you're part of the story. As if on cue, Patricia's phone buzzed with a notification. It was a text from her sister. OMG, is this you and Andre with LeBron? Just saw it on Instagram. There was a link attached. Patricia clicked it, and sure enough, there was a video of LeBron climbing through the stands, approaching them, and presenting Andre with the shoes and jersey. The clip had already amassed thousands of likes and shares. She showed it to Andre, whose mouth fell open in surprise. Whoa, this is so cool. Can you send it to Dad? He's not going to believe this. I will as soon as we get home, Patricia promised, already imagining her ex-husband's reaction. Despite their differences, he'd be thrilled for Andre. As they continued their journey home, more texts and calls began coming in. Friends who recognized them from the videos, family members who'd heard the news. Even Andre's basketball coach sent a message. Just saw what happened. Incredible. Can't wait to hear all about it at practice. By the time they reached their stop, Patricia's phone battery was nearly dead from all the activity. They stepped off the bus into the quiet night of their neighborhood, the streets peaceful and empty, a stark contrast to the electric atmosphere they'd just left behind. Mom, Andre said as they walked the 3 blocks to their apartment building, do you think that man will see what happened, the one who took our seats? Patricia considered the question. He might. The video seems to be spreading pretty fast. Andre was quiet for a moment, then said, I hope he does. Not to make him feel bad or anything. Just so he knows that what he did wasn't okay. Patricia squeezed her son's shoulder, amazed by his maturity. That's a very thoughtful way to look at it. When they finally reached their apartment, it was past midnight. Andre would normally have been exhausted at this hour, but he was still running on adrenaline. He carefully placed LeBron's shoes and the signed jersey on the kitchen table, arranging them just so. Can I call Dad now? I know it's late, but he might still be up. Patricia checked the time. Her ex-husband lived 2 time zones away, so it wasn't quite as late for him. Okay, but just for a few minutes, you still need to get some sleep tonight. Andre made the call on speakerphone, barely able to contain himself as he waited for his father to answer. Hey, buddy. His dad's voice came through. Little late for a call, isn't it? Everything okay? Dad, you're not going to believe what happened. Andre launched into the story, words tumbling out in his excitement. He recounted every detail, the confrontation over the seats, security, being called, and then the magical moment when LeBron himself had appeared in their section. He gave me his actual game-worn shoes, Dad. The ones he wore while getting a triple-double and a signed jersey. There was a moment of stunned silence on the other end. Are you serious? LeBron James came to talk to you personally? Yes, Mom. Took pictures and everything. It's all over the internet. Wow, that's incredible, son, his father said, sounding genuinely amazed. I'm so happy for you, but also sorry you had to deal with that guy in the first place. It's okay, Andre said thoughtfully. If it hadn't happened, maybe LeBron wouldn't have come to see us. So maybe it worked out for the best. After a few more minutes of excited conversation, Patricia gently ended the call, reminding Andre that it was late and they both needed sleep. Reluctantly, Andre said goodnight to his father and went to prepare for bed, though not before carefully moving his new treasures to his bedroom. Don't stay up all night staring at those shoes, Patricia called after him. They'll still be there in the morning. I know, Andre called back. I just want to find the perfect spot for them. Patricia smiled to herself as she prepared for bed. What had started as a potentially traumatic experience had transformed into something beautiful. She knew that Andre would remember this night for the rest of his life, not for the ugliness of prejudice, but for the power of standing up against it. The next morning, Patricia woke to the sound of Andre already up and moving around the apartment. Unusual for a Sunday morning when he typically slept in. She found him in the living room watching the morning news on TV. Sure enough, their story was being featured. "Mom, look!" Andre pointed excitedly at the screen. "That's us." The news anchor was speaking over footage from the previous night. In a powerful moment after last night's game, basketball superstar LeBron James made his way into the stands to comfort a young fan who had reportedly been subjected to racist behavior before the game. The video showed LeBron climbing through the arena seating, approaching Andre and Patricia, and presenting the shoes and jersey. The camera zoomed in on Andre's face, capturing his expression of pure awe and joy. According to witnesses, the anchor continued, a man had refused to vacate seats that belonged to the boy and his mother, making racial comments in the process. Security eventually removed the man, but James apparently noticed the incident and decided to take action after the game. They cut to a clip of Keith Johnson, the reporter who had interviewed them. What stood out to me was how deliberate this was. Johnson was saying, "This wasn't a spontaneous gesture. LeBron saw something wrong happening, and he made a conscious decision to address it, to show this young fan that he mattered." Andre,